Hello, everyone, and welcome to this TransformDairyNet webinar on calf play in cow contact systems. My name is Pernille, and I work at the Norwegian Veterinary Institute, and I will be the moderator for today. And here you can see the agenda. So first, Margit will talk about what is play, how to recognize it, different types of play shown in cattle, the motivation of play, and how it relates to animal welfare. Then I will show you some results on play behavior of dairy calves in different housing systems. And next we have Romane, which will talk about play behavior of cow contact calves on pasture. And then Anina will talk about effects of weaning on play behavior. And between each of these presentations, we will show some video clips that are connected to the theme of each presentation. And at last, we will have a Q&A where we will address any questions that you might have. And before we begin, just some house rules. Please keep your microphone muted to avoid background noise, and you will be invited to speak during the Q&A if you have a question. And you can also use the chat to comment your questions. And please mark the question who they're for, if they're for a specific speaker. And you can also, if you have the same question as someone else, you can feel free to like their comment. And if you want to speak, you can raise your hand. And also this session will be recorded. So if you don't want to be recorded, please keep your camera off. And before we start, I would also like to thank everyone that has submitted videos to this webinar, because they're very nice and I hope you all will like them. They left a big smile on my face when I watched them. So then I think we can start, and I will share Margit's presentation. Okay, Margit.
Thank you very much. Many thanks for the invitation to speak at this webinar. Play behavior and maternal behavior are two of my favorite topics, so I think a webinar on play behavior and cow-calf contact systems, that's just an excellent idea. But what is play behavior? The next slide, please. Normally, we categorize behavior according to its function. We talk about social behavior, maternal behavior, and feeding behavior, for instance. But for play behavior, we have an idea about the function, but we do not know for sure. It's very difficult to determine the function of play behavior. An early theory was that the function of play was physical training of skeletal muscles, but current theories are that play enables the animal to assess its own physical and social ability, and that play serves to train flexible responses to unexpected events. So the idea is that by playing today, the animal can react more flexibly tomorrow. For instance, by play fighting, the animal gets information on own strengths and weaknesses in a safe interaction and without getting hurt. And by performing body twists and butt kicks in locomotor play, and by deliberately losing balance doing so, the animal gets better at regaining balance in situations with real danger later on. Next slide, please. We've all seen young animals play, and we all think that we can recognize play when we see it. But play behavior has many different elements. So what is play behavior actually, and how do we recognize it? Now, Gordon Bucket formulated a set of criteria that must be met before we can label a behavior as play. And these criteria for classifying a behavior as play, they help us distinguish play from other behaviors when there's uncertainty. Next slide, please. The first criteria is that play behavior includes elements of functional behavior such as fight, flight, or predatory behavior. But when the animals perform these elements during play, the elements are exaggerated, they're repeated, and they're more variable in the performance. Also, self-handicapping occurs, and the behavior is without the confirmatory act of the corresponding functional behavior. That means that it appears purposeless. For instance, during a rough and tumble play in fox cubs, as you see on the picture here, one cub rolls over on the back, making itself more vulnerable to sort of the play fighting attacks from the other, and that's an example of self-handicapping. And the interaction ends peacefully and without submission or fleeing, which in a real fighting situation would result in. Next slide, please. Another criteria is that animals, they play when they're safe. They play when they're in a relaxed atmosphere. And animals seek out the opportunity to play, and they also encourage others to play. So that means that play is spontaneous, it's voluntary, it's intentional, and it's rewarding, and it's done for its own sake in a safe situation. Next slide, please. But it's not always easy to recognize play. For instance, what starts as play fighting and fun sometimes develops into a serious fight with submission or fleeing. And in that case, if it ends with a serious aggression and has the results of aggression, then we can't label the event as play, even though it might have started as play. Some elements of play behavior are easier to recognize than others. Those we call play markers. Play markers are signals serving to say, what comes now is play. And a well-known play marker is the play bow in dogs that you see on this picture. Next slide, please. We can also talk about the motivation for play. Animals, they play when they are happy and safe. They play when their physiological needs are met and when they're well fed and healthy. Those are the internal factors that needs to be in place for animals to be motivated to play. But external factors are also important. For instance, social partners are needed for social play, and space is needed for animals to be able to perform locomotor play. In addition, novelty can stimulate play if the novelty is exciting, but not if it's scary. So we also know that welfare threats reduce play behavior. As I said before, animals play when they're healthy and satiated and well fed. But if there's ill weather, if there's ill health or poor weather or scarcity of food, that reduces play behavior. That's been found both under natural conditions, and that's also found in commercial conditions, as we shall hear about later. So when we talk about play, the motivation for play behavior and its relation to welfare, we can say that juveniles are motivated to play when their physiological needs are met and they're in good health. So that's a prerequisite for animals being motivated to play at all. So we can say that the absence of motivation to play indicates welfare threats and poor welfare in juvenile animals. As I said before, we also know that the performance of play is reinforcing, exciting, and pleasurable. and therefore the presence of play indicates good welfare and positive emotions. So that's the way play behavior relates to animal welfare. If the animals are not motivated to play, then there might be welfare threats. And if they are motivated to play and they are also able to play because they have the external factors are in place for them to be able to play, then we can say that they are experiencing good welfare during the performance of play behavior. Let's now look at the different play behaviors in calves. In calves, calves perform locomotive play behavior, galloping, buck kicks, turns, and body twists, both individually but also at the same time as pairs, and we call that parallel locomotive play. Calves also perform social play behavior, that's play fighting and head rotations. And actually, there's a theory that these head rotations, that's also seen during locomotive play and during social play, they're actually invitations or play markers to engage other calves to play with them. Calves also perform object play. They perform rubbing the ground, which the functional behavior of that, which you see at the bottom of the slide, that's marking or threatening behavior. And they also butt objects. Next slide, please. This is a picture from a current study within a joint internal project called the Assessment of Positive Animal Welfare Defining Animal-Based Measures, which is part of the European Partnership of the Animal Health and Welfare Project. And this has the aim of validating play as an indicator of positive emotions, and it comes from it investigates whether locomotive play in dairy calves occurs more in preferred and valued environments. And it's been shown by independent research that calves prefer brushes and hay nets as environmental enrichment, and that they also prefer contact to familiar peers. What we're offering them here is an environment. We're comparing the amount of play behavior in an environment where these environmental enrichments, they exist, and where they do not, to see if that increases the performance of play behavior under the same space allowances. It's also been found that calves prefers large to small spaces and dim light to illumination and non-slip surfaces to unstable surfaces. However, because these things actually, large space, light, and non-slip surfaces are actually prerequisites for animals to be able to play, we can't use them in the validation study in the same way. But we can say that if calves perform more locomotive play under preferred environments, then that sort of that goes towards supporting that play behavior is indeed associated with positive emotions. Next slide, please. And positive animal welfare is in another EU project on in the cost action lift, been defined as animals flourishing through the experience of predominantly positive mental states and the development of competence and resilience. And this most of the research to date has focused on positive mental states, but it's a new adventure to try and explore whether it also, for instance, the performance of play behavior also relates to the development of competence and resilience. Next slide, please. Oh, that was just to show you the homepage of the cost action lift and how to find it using the link. We can move on. So positive animal welfare provides really a different perspective. For instance, when we ask how much space calves need. For instance, the EFSA opinion of calf welfare stated that calves, they need to have 3 square meters per animal to have enough space to rest in a relaxed position to avoid resting problems. So to avoid a negative outcome or minimize a negative outcome, the animals, they need at least 3 square meters per animal. But the EFSA opinion also stated that to be able to perform full play behavior, the animals need 20 square meters per animal. And that means that to be able to maximize a positive outcome, the animals, they need 20 square meters. So that's just, it's an illustration of how we can arrive at different conclusions on how to safeguard animal welfare depending on the perspective, depending on whether we come from the perspective of minimizing negatives or optimizing positives. I think that was the words from me, and I think I've used my time as well. And I know that now there is some questions and some slides, or not some slides, but some videos to look at. So this first video is showing 2 young calves. They were engaging a little bit of social play there through the bars. Here we see a typical situation that is after the adding of straw bedding. Calves often engage in play behavior. So that's a example of there's some novel stimulation added to the pen, and that sort of motivates the calves to play at that point. Also, I have to say that straw bedding is a very good surface for calves to play on. It's non-slip, and they can really engage in running and bucking and kicking. I'm going to see some kicking from this calf in a little minute. Yep, there you go. And I think that's, yes, and of course, when one calf joins, then when calf plays, then it also stimulates other calves to join. That's something that we can see. If calves have enough space, they also synchronize the play behavior, the locomotor play behavior, more than if they have a small space. This is an interaction between the cow and its dam. So the calf is engaging in frontal pushing, a social play behavior with the dam. Now, and there you see typically they do some jumping and bouncing about, also to sort of motivate and invitate the dam to play. So play behavior is seen between calf and dam, but at least in our studies, we've never seen it between calf and any other cow, because the dam is sort of safe to play with, we suppose. So here we have some locomotor play down a long stride. And long pens where calves can really get started running, they stimulate more play behavior than shorter spaces. In this case, we saw a little bit of losing balance due to the slip floor. I don't know if you noticed that earlier. Here I just listed things to remember, that play resembles functional behavior, but during play the movements are exaggerated, repeated, and variable, and the behavior appears functionless. That animals seek opportunity to play, and play behavior is associated with positive emotions. That young animals are motivated to play when they're healthy and when their needs for food, comfort, and safety are met. However, even if animals are motivated to play, they may be prevented from doing so by lack of space and play partners. And I think there were some questions too. Yeah. So these are questions for you. What type of play behavior is most common in calf? And you can tick off which you think is the most common: social play, the frontal pushing, locomotor play, the running, galloping, kicking, buck kicking, turning quickly around, the object play, butting fixtures, or rubbing into the straw. I hope you're entering your replies now. I don't know how long should the question be open. Let's see if there's still some. So will the reply appear on the screen? Yeah. Just do we see the reply, or should we take the next question?
I think we can take the next question.
Okay. You see the response. That's good. So the response was that the most common type of play is locomotor play, and that is indeed I can't see it anymore, but that is indeed true. When we measured the occurrences of play behavior, we've often seen most locomotor play, and then social play, and then straw play is of course only seen when you are housing the calves in pens with straw. Okay, the other question is which type of play behavior is play between dam and calf? So here we can put the answers in your chat. And we get a lot of replies that it's social play behavior, and that is true. It's social play behavior, and as I said before, it's seen between the dam and the calf, and at least in our studies, we haven't seen it between another cow and the calf. So calves also play with the dam as well as playing with same age peers. Then I would like to hear if you could in one word describe a factor that you think is important for calves' motivation to play. And is that again in the chat? Yeah. Enough food, milk and space, novelty, contentment. Yeah. Safety, good health. So feeling safe, satiated, and healthy. Could you also in one word describe a factor that you think is important for the calf's possibilities to play? What should we provide calves with for them to be able to play? Friends, peers at least, space, and also a good footing. I think that's something that's often overlooked, that for animals to perform elaborate locomotor play, at least it's important that the animals have a good footing for performing the play. So that they don't, because if they have a good footing, then they do more elaborate elements of play. So actually, a very slippery surface will suppress the amount of play behavior the same way as too little space will suppress the amount of play behavior. And of course, calves need partners, same age partners, or a dam to be able to perform locomotor play behavior. Thank you very much for tipping in on these questions. I'd hoped that we could do sort of a word cloud on it, but I'm afraid we couldn't do that anyway. But thanks for putting all of these things in the chat. I think that was all. Yeah, I think we could just, I think that was just an extra slide, Pernille. I think we can just skip that one. I've already talked about it.
Okay, thank you so much, Margit. That was a very nice presentation. And I think it's very good for setting the stage before we move on to the next presentations. Now I will share my presentation. Okay, so my presentation is results from my master thesis, which was part of the Calf Comfort Project and the EU Partnership on Animal Health and Welfare. And for this study, I looked at play behavior of dairy calves in different housing systems. So, in natural environments, calves are born into herds raised in close contact with their dam and have plenty of space to play and interact socially. In contrast, conventional dairy systems often separate calves from their dam shortly after birth, restrict milk access, and often house them individually for the first weeks of life. And this contrast between natural and conventional systems raises important welfare questions. And since play behavior is considered a positive welfare indicator, we hypothesize that calves raised under more naturalistic housing would play more and in more diverse ways. So we looked at play behavior in 3 different treatments. The first one is the minimal treatment, where they are housed individually in a small pen and given restricted amounts of milk. Then we have the peer treatment. Here they were housed in a larger group pen and given quite a lot of milk. And the last, we have the cow contact treatment, where the calves were housed in a freestall environment together with their mothers, and they had lots of space and could suckle their dam freely. And before we look at the results, I would like to ask you all a question. You already answered it in Margit's questions, but which factors do you think has the strongest influence on calf play behavior? Do you think it's the presence of the dam, space available, milk access, or social partners? And I don't necessarily have the answer to this. It's probably a combination and also depends on the type of play. Yeah, so a lot of people think space and social partners. Yeah. Thank you all for answering. That's very interesting. Okay, so moving on to the results. First, I would like to show you some examples. Here you can see a calf running in the peer treatment. And then here are some in the cow contact treatment. And here are the results for running. And here you can see the number of times they were running in the 3 different treatments. And here you can clearly see that the minimal treatment had the least running. And this is most likely due to their limited space. And also, I would, before starting this project, I thought that the cow contact would run the most because they had the most space, but maybe the flooring was a bit slippery and not the best for them to run. So moving on, here is a calf jumping in the minimal. And here are the results for jumping. And for this, here is the number of times they were jumping. And here the minimal treatment actually had the highest. And this could maybe be because of the limited space the minimal calves have. They're not able to run as much as they want to, and then they could use jumping as a substitute for that. So they're jumping a lot instead of running. And then here we have headbutting. And another example here from the peer. And here are the results for headbutting. And here you can see that the peer treatment had a lot more occurrences of headbutting than the other two. And the explanation for the low counts for headbutting in the minimal, I think, is because they didn't have anyone to play with. And the reason that they have some headbutting at all is that we scored headbutting alone as well. So they did perform some headbutting against the wall. But the difference between peer and cow context is a bit harder to explain because they both have other calves to play with. But one explanation could be that the peer calves are in a group pen and they're always in proximity to each other, so they might like invite each other to play more often, and the play could be contagious so that when one starts, the others start as well. While for the cow contact, they have a more larger space and are more spread out, so they're not close to each other all the time. And they might be spending time with their mother or exploring instead of playing with other calves. And another explanation could be that maybe the mothers like teach them how to behave or stop them from headbutting. And then at last, I wanted to look at something else than just to measure the amount of play. I also wanted to look at the diversity of the play. And in order to do this, I calculated the Shannon Diversity Index for play in the 3 treatments. And this measures how many behaviors are present and also how they are distributed. So if you have a few behaviors present and also that they are one behavior that is dominating, you will get a lower score, while if you have a lot of behaviors and they're more evenly distributed, you will get a higher score. So here you can see that the minimal scored lower than the two other treatments, and this, I think, reflects that they have a more limited environment with which limits their opportunities for play and different play behaviors. So, what can we conclude? First, the housing systems clearly shaped how calves expressed play. Calves in more enriched environments with social partners, more space, and better milk access generally showed more play and greater diversity. Second, while we saw a large difference between the minimal and the other two systems, the distinction between peer and cow contact calves was less clear. Even though cow contact calves had the most space and maternal presence, they did not play more than the peer calves. And this tells us that, well, play is a valuable welfare indicator, but maybe not always a precise one. In addition, calves in the cow contact may have been engaging in other rewarding behaviors, such as resting with their dam or exploring the space instead of just playing. And also, other studies have actually found more play in cow-calf contact systems compared to group-housed ones. For example, Weiblinger in 2020 reported calves with access to their dam and herd showed longer periods of locomotor play than group-housed. And however, CCC systems vary greatly in design and management, and therefore the results are not always consistent. Finally, our findings support that play can be an indicator of positive welfare, but I think it should also be interpreted along with other welfare measures. So I would like to thank the staff at the NMBU Farm Animal Research Center for their support, and this research is funded by the Research Council of Norway and the European Partnership on Animal Health and Welfare. Thank you all so much for your attention, and now we will see another video. So here you can see the calves are running, and we will see that there are different types of CCC, ways of doing CCC. And yeah, it seems like they prefer to run on the bedded areas and not where it's slippery. Even though this one doesn't seem like he cares, he just runs. Here they have a lot of space with nothing in the way, and they also have the bedded area where it's not slippery, so then they can run a lot. Okay, thank you again so much for your attention. And now Romane will present some results from play on pasture in calf contact.
Hello everyone, thank you Pernille for organizing the webinar and for introducing me. So I will present you today some results about an observational study that took place on pasture and that focused on the behavior of dairy calves kept in cow-calf contact system. And today we will speak only about play behavior. So the methods used for this study was direct observation that were performed on pasture during summer 2020. In total, 26 cow-calf pairs were observed, and the cow-calf pairs were divided into 2 herds, and each herd had its own pasture. There were about 10 and 15 cow-calf pairs observed per herd, and in the herd there were about 40 cows. So the calves were aged between 5 and 19 days of age, and they were observed over 2 months, in total for 16 days, and observations took place every 2 weeks. In total, 48 hours of observation were done, and within each hour of observation, 1 calf was observed for 5 minutes, and during these 5 minutes, all activities performed by the calf were recorded, and also the duration of each activity, and when the calf was performing a social play or social interaction, the partner the calf was interacted with was also recorded. So for play behavior, I focus on 2 types of play. So the first one was social play, mainly headbutting, and the second one was locomotor play, when the calf were running. So about social play. So here, just because Pernille already spoke about a result, she spoke about the number of times calves were performing social play and the number of times they were performing locomotor play. But in my study, I looked at the duration of play bout. So how many times in a row the calf was playing. So for social playbot, mainly headbutting, I look on the duration of the social playbot when the calf was either playing with a calf present in the herd or either playing with its dam. And there was no difference in the duration of the social playbot. It lasted around 5 seconds. I also compared the duration of a social playbout between calves that were 1 month of age and between calves that were 3 months of age. And again, there was no difference in the duration of social playbout. So we know from the literature that familiarity affects the choice of playmates. And as already Margit said in her presentation, play involves self-handicapping. So the calf prefers to play with partners it feels safe with, where it knows nothing worse can happen. So that's why it's important for the calf to have familiar partners with him to be able to perform social play. Then I looked on the duration on locomotor play performed by calves, and I compared the duration of locomotor play bout between 1 month old and 3 months old calves. And again, I did not notice a difference in the duration of a locomotor play bout. So we know that the amount of space offered to the calf has an effect on the performance of locomotor play. And so what we can see here that when 1-month-old calves are offered with a big space on pasture, they perform as much locomotor play as older one, which shows that younger calves are also motivated to play and to perform locomotor play. So I come already to the conclusion about this small observational study where we saw that for dairy calves in cow-calf contact system on pasture, so familiarity affected the choice of playmates, and that also younger calves perform as much as locomotor play as older ones. And also, I did not notice any differences in the performance of social play behavior or in the performance of locomotor play behavior between male and female calves. So now, that's it for me. Thank you for your attention. And I have some questions for the audience. And normally, the question should pop up. So there are 2 questions. So you have to go down to see the both questions. So it's interesting to see the result because the majority is answering the same, which is that most of the time calves are playing with the same playmate, either for younger calves like for older calves. So that means that it's also important for the calf to always have a partner they know they are familiar with to be able to perform social play behavior and also to feel safe to perform play behavior. Now I think you can see the results. So yeah, with the majority, about 80% of the people reporting that the calf are always playing with the same playmate. So thank you for your participation and to your answer for the questions. And now we will go through a video break. So there are very nice videos about cow and calf on pasture. So here we can see that cows and calf are playing. The cows performing more social play and the calf performing more locomotor play. So it's a good illustration that play behavior is contagious. And it can also be that was the first time that the group were going out on pasture and maybe the novelty is triggering play behavior. Here on this video, we see 2 very young calves running with elevated tail through the herd in the pasture. So it's a good illustration that younger calves are motivated to run when they are offered enough place to perform this behavior. What is also interesting to see is that both calves are running back and forwards within the herd. They are not going on the other side of the pasture where there are space available, but they are staying nearby the herd. So maybe they are feeling safer when they are running within the herd and not too far away from the herd. So we can see that an older calf is looking at the two younger one, curious about what they are doing. And then the two young calves are running again. Yeah, and so this calf is very fast and enjoying running on pasture. So thank you for sharing the videos with us, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Romane. It was a very nice presentation and interesting to see results from pasture, because there's not a lot of, it hasn't been looked on play on pasture that much. So thank you so much. And now Anina will talk about play and the effect of weaning.
Okay, can you see my screen properly? Seems like it. Okay, yeah, welcome everyone also from my side. You've already heard quite a bit about play today, and in the last talk I want to focus on play as an indicator for welfare, with a special focus as an indicator for weaning and separation stress in cow-calf contact systems. And first of all, it's a little recap of what Margit has already told us a bit. So why can we use play as a welfare indicator in calves? Well, there has been research in the past that has been shown that play is sensitive to pain, to low energy intake, and also poor health. For example, when we dispot calves, we see a reduction of head play and also locomotor play afterwards. Also, when we have studies which are comparing milk allowances, so if one group has, for example, 6 liters of milk and the other group has 12 liters of milk, we see that the calves with a lower milk allowance and thus lower energy intake are actually showing less locomotor play. And then the link between calf play and poor health is not as well established in scientific studies, but for example, in 2019, there has been a study which has shown that a bad health condition of a companion calf has actually led to more individual locomotor play of the test calf. And I think we all know from our practical experience that if we have a calf that is sick, have hanging ears, it generally is playing almost none. So yes, we can say that animals that do not feel well will play less, but that's not the whole story. There's also research that has shown that calves show a rebound of locomotor play behavior after being unable to perform it. So if they're deprived of having the opportunity of locomotor play and then have the opportunity again, they actually show more than what they would have shown normally. And at least for social play, for locomotor play, this is not established, but for social play, we know that this is modulated by the internal opioid system, which in humans is linked to pain relief and also euphoric effects. And hence we can deduct that play is likely a self-rewarding, pleasurable experience. So the animals are not performing it to get or to reach a certain goal, but just the behavior itself is rewarding to the animal because it is pleasurable and they enjoy doing it. And because of this, we can say that animals that play have likely not only neutral, but actually positive welfare. And just to illustrate this with this little video, we can likely say that this calf is probably not hungry at the moment because then it would go to the udder and suckle. We now see this little kick there, which can tell us that the animal probably enjoys what it's doing, having a positive experience, and also that it's likely not sick because then it would conserve energy and not waste energy by playing like this. And in general, as you can see here, we have good prerequisites for play behavior in cow-calf contact systems because the calf can suckle the udder, so it has good milk allowance. We usually have space in the barn or also here on pasture. And so, we can generally see lots of play, or we can expect that we see much play in cow-calf contact systems. Yes, how can we measure play then? Behavioral observation is kind of time-consuming, but by now we have the opportunity to do an automatic recording of calves' locomotor play with these accelerometers you can see here. They are just attached to the leg with rep And here you see the results of the validation study. So these are the counts of peak acceleration measurements from the accelerometer. And these are the counts of play events from video observations of the same calves. And you see that this is there's quite a good correlation. And hence, these counts of peak accelerations give us a quite good estimation of how much play, locomotor play the animals have done. And with this as background, I now want to focus more on play behavior during weaning and separation. I think most of you are aware that weaning and separation is one of the major problems in cow-calf contact systems, and it's very stressful for the animals, but also for the farmer, and that we need solutions for this. And because of this, the study I want to present now has tried to compare calf stress responses when they were separated with two different methods. The first methods we looked at were the nose flap. The nose flap is inserted into the muzzle of the calf, and with this, it cannot suckle the udder anymore. And the advantage is that the calf can then still be with the mother, and by this first deal with the loss of the milk, and then afterwards deal with the loss of the mother, so the two stressors are separated in time. And then the second method we looked at was the gradual reduction of cow-calf contact time. So we just basically allowed cow and calf to have less and less contact together, and by this wanted to achieve also a reduction in milk allowance, which is more what is happening in nature. And in detail, it looked like this. So in the nose flap treatment, during the baseline period, we had full-time cow-calf contact. So you already have seen the barn in the videos. Here's the calf area, here's the cow area, and here we have the selection gate from the side view. This is the front view. And during the baseline period, the calves could just enter the cow area, go here to their mothers, suckle, lay in the cubicles like they wanted. So they had free access. Then when the calves were 3 months old, they got the nose flap inserted. And with the nose flap, they could still enter the cow area like they wanted. For 2 weeks, they had it. And then in the third week, we had only fence line contact across the pen boundaries here, which meant that cow and calf could still see each other, could smell, could hear each other, and have a little bit of tactile contact across the selection gate. And then after these 3 weeks, the calf was moved to the young stock barn, which was then the total separation. And in the GR treatment, we also had full-time cow-calf contact in the baseline period. And then in the first week, this was reduced to only half-day contact, meaning that during the day, the calves could still enter the cow area, be with the mothers, but during the night, they were separated into the calf area. In the second week, the contact was further reduced to only morning contact until noon. So for the rest of the day, then until the next morning, the calves were again separated into the calf area. And in the third week with fence line contact, they were fully separated into the calf area here before they were moved to the young stock barn as well. So in both treatments, the weaning took place with 3 months over a duration of 3 weeks in total. And during these 3 weeks, we measured the locomotor play with these accelerometers I have shown you at 1 day per week for 9 hours. So here on the y-axis, you see the locomotor play as counts of peak acceleration measurements per 9 hours. And here we have the baseline and these 3 weeks of the weaning procedure. In blue, you see the nose flap group, and in red, the gradual reduction group. And as you can see, in the nose flap group, we have a reduction of play behavior in these 2 weeks when the calves were wearing the nose flap. And then in the third week, we have a little bit of a numerical recovery of play behavior in some of the calves, but not in all calves. And in the gradual reduction treatment, we had no drop in play behavior in the 2 weeks when calves had partly still access to the mothers. But then in the third week here, we also see the numerical decline in locomotor play because then they were fully separated from the mothers. So here we think this was what we expected, because we know from past literature that when they have reduced milk allowances, or low energy intake, that we will find reduced play behavior. And so this is what we see here as well. What was interesting was actually the third week, because I will quickly want to show you the weight gain results as well. So you see that we had a drop in weight gains in the 2 weeks when the calves were wearing the nose flap. But then in the third week, when the nose flap was taken out and the animals had the fence line contact, we also saw these quite low weight gains. So the energy intake or the energy level was likely not a lot better in the third week. But despite this, they still showed the recovery, or a little bit of a recovery in play behavior. So this points towards the fact that there was also some part of an emotional component linked to this. For example, that the animals were just happy that they had the nose flap taken out and got rid of this thing finally. In the GR group, this is similar. So we have this drop in the third week. When we look at average daily weight gains, we see that actually the calves had an increase in weight gain with every week of the separation procedure. And actually the best weight gains in the last week. So low energy intake or low energy levels was probably not the reason for this drop in, or numerical drop in play behavior here, but probably more also an emotional component of animals being simply frustrated that they could not enter the cow area anymore, not be with their mothers. So yes, in total, I think we see that we have a reduction in play behavior during the weaning procedure, and that this is linked to low milk allowances, but there's also more components like some emotional frustration. And with this, I would like to conclude that weaning has a negative effect on the amount of locomotor play in 3-month-old calves. These results might look different if we have older calves, and that play can be used as an indicator for weaning stress. And because of this, I would like to encourage everyone to actually start looking for play in your calves as well at home, in your barns. In which situations do the animals show play behavior, and how can we maybe provide the animals with more opportunities to show play behavior? Because it is actually a quite good indicator, and I think it has also shown that it can tell us some story about the aversiveness of weaning and separation procedure as well. Yes, and with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. I think the questions we do during the Q&A. And my question to the audience, I will just integrate into the video break while I talk over this. Yes. So Margit has talked about this, and me as well, that we can use the play behavior as a welfare indicator, and that usually is linked with pleasurable emotions and often shows us positive welfare. And this is why I would like to draw your attention a bit to the cows actually also showing play behavior. At least in our barn, they're stimulated by the calves. And my question to the audience would be, if someone who has done the transition from a conventional system to a CCC system has made some experiences how the cows have changed during this, because I have seen conventional systems and also CCC systems, but I've never seen or experienced this change of before and after. And I would be interested in any anecdotal evidence or subjective experiences of if you have noticed any change in your cows or not. And the first cow we've seen is actually a heifer, first calver. These two were older cows. They were multiparous ones. This is the first calver as well. And Margit already told us a lot about the slippery surface and that this suppresses play behavior. So I would also be interested if people have experience in barns like compost barns, if you have seen play behavior in your cows as well, which might be even more. Here we also see some spontaneous play of the cow with her calf. Here we're looking at head play, what Margit also had in her presentation. So this is quite nice for the calf, because it can test itself a little bit, learn what it's like to be a grown-up cow. But also, again, I want to focus a bit on the mothers, because we talk so much about the calves. What does this actually mean for the mothers? I think having a calf in the herd or in the barn is very enriching for the cow. Like it will be an enrichment in the otherwise often very dull day-to-day life. And often the play of the calf can be a bit contagious to the mothers as well. And here we again see some head play. And these videos are not so much a spontaneous situation, but these animals have just been reunited after separation. So we are looking at a half-day contact system here. The animals have been separated during the day and had night have night contact. So this is actually the reunion after the separation when they first get together again, and we see again play behavior, and that the animals are obviously happy to be back together. This one is very excited to see her calf. Okay, that was that. Maybe again, the question from the beginning, if there is any one who has some experience with transition from conventional to a CCC system, if you have any experience about this behavioral changes of the cows, I would be interested to hear this. And yeah, then I give back to Pernille.
Yeah, so we actually got a comment on that about the comparison. And someone, Paula Hensel, she had seen that they ran more on compost barns than slippery floors.
But with the calves, or only by themselves?
It says calves.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so thank you all, Margit, Romane, and Anina, for your very nice presentations. Thank you for contributing. And also, again, thank you so much to everyone who contributed with videos. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And now it's time to have a Q&A to answer your questions. Yeah. So, let me see. First, we have a question here. I think it's from my presentation. Why did you limit milk allowance? And the reason for that is in this study, we wanted to look at or to find indicators of positive animal welfare with looking at 3 treatments with a different gradient of welfare. So then we wanted the minimal to be like the conventional farming where they have restricted amounts of milk, and then the peer like in the middle, and then the calf contact as the best. So yeah, that's why we restricted the milk allowance. And then there's a question, how long does headbutting usually last? And what is 1 bounce? So I think it depends. Headbutting can last for some seconds, and it can also be minutes. Do anyone else has an answer to that?
Yeah, I think it can be a few seconds during, and it can also be that They are performing few second headbutting, then have a break for 5-10 seconds and performing it again.
Yeah. And
if I can say a little bit about that as well, because I mean you talked about head butting, and also you, Romane, you mentioned head to head and head play, and I was just wondering if the head butting was always, I mean, if you looked at, I mean, I think it's important to categorize things as play, social play. It's important to really look at whether it ends with avoidance, or people or animals fleeing from each other. So it's very important that we think about it in that way, and only record interactions with head-to-head frontal pushing and head butting when they are really playful, associated with these head rotations, and not resulting in one animal fleeing from the other one, and making sure that they're not escalating into real aggression, especially as the animals they grow older.
Yeah, I agree. And the question did also say, what is one bounce? I think it's supposed to be bout. So one headbutting bout could be from they start to they stop headbutting. It depends a bit on how you measure it. If they do several headbuttings in a short amount of time, that could be one bout, or you could stop it when they're not head to head. And then there's another question about headbutting as well. I think, could it be that headbutt is higher in group pens because they are trying to establish hierarchy, while on cow contact they don't feel the same need to establish it? It could be, but I don't know that much about hierarchies in calves.
But in your treatments, Pernille, was there the same amount of calves in the groups of calves and in the groups with the dams? Were there the same amount of calves in both groups?
Yes, there were 6 in each.
Yeah. I can't see why the need. I mean, I can't see why the need to. And in I mean, of course, when the calves become older, social play becomes related to hierarchy, because it's a way of assessing each other's strengths in a safe environment. But in the very young calves, it's not related to aggression or hierarchy in formation, I think.
And here is a question, I think, for you, Margit. How many different play behaviors can calves have? From Ragnar.
I just need to find this.
How many different play behaviors can calves have?
I mean, they can perform a lot of different play behavior elements, but we categorize them into locomotor play, social play, and object play. But within locomotor play, there are many distinct elements like galloping and kicking and bucking and fast turns and hopping on the spot. But we categorize them, they're performed in the same sequences, and we group them together as locomotor play. But it's useful to look at locomotor play and social play and object play separately, because we're not sure that they are motivated the same way. For instance, we found in our studies, that calves performed a rebound of locomotor play, but we couldn't find that they performed a rebound of social play within the same time span. That was a study actually performed by Maja Bertelsen, who I saw in the audience today. So hello, Maja. Yeah.
Yeah, so here we have a question for Roman from Nicola. Do you know if there's differences in amount of play for different breeds?
I don't know. I just look on German Holstein cows, so I don't have an idea about it.
It's okay.
Can I say a little bit more about the rebound of play? Because
Yes.
it's something that we discussed and also that Anina came across in her presentation. So I think that the rebound of play, that's evidence that there is an internal motivation to play, to perform this play behavior, and it shows that the play behavior is not just motivated by external stimuli. So the fact that there is an internal motivation and it builds up with time. And also there's been found that there's also been found that there's a relation between the amount of play in the home pen and the rebound. So the more you restrict play behavior in the home pen, the larger the rebound. So in relation to that, you can actually also use rebounds to say something about the quality of the home environment. So although it hasn't been investigated, I think I would predict that cows that can actually perform locomotive play inside the barn in the winter housing period, they will probably perform less when they're let out at pasture in the summer. It doesn't mean that it's not fun to perform play behavior as a cow once you're let out to pasture in the summer, but it also illustrates that they haven't really been able to do that while they were inside during the winter. So that's something that we should also keep in mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
And here we have a question for Anina from Paula. Do you think that the average daily weight gains were low in the GR group at week 3 due to lesions in the nose and therefore they did not eat that much?
I think it's the nose flap group she's talking about, not a GR group, because the GR group had quite good weight gains in the 3rd week. I think the lesions in the nose are likely a cause for the low weight gains also in the week 1 and 2 when they still had the nose flap, because if they have lesions and the nose flap is moving, then this can of course hurt and can be in the way. In the 3rd week, they had the nose flap taking out, and so I don't think that the lesions in the nose are an explanation really for the 3rd week. My idea is more that this has to do with the bad adaptation of the gastrointestinal tract, because the microbiome obviously has to change from a milk diet to a roughage diet, and these animals come from really high milk allowances, and really within 1 day they lose access to the milk, and so that needs some time that all the digestive tract changes and gets accustomed to having to eat raw fish. And I think the assimilation is still quite bad in these calves, because it's just been a very quick transition from high milk to no milk at all anymore.
And here is 2 other questions that are kind of related. One is there a higher risk of lameness for both cows and calves indoor as they run more? And also maybe that the slippery floor can bring accidents so they can get hurt.
Yes, of course, that's the thing. That's also what we've been emphasizing, that slippery floors are not perfect for calf or cow play. But honestly, when I came to this barn, I also had the impression, oh my God, they must hurt themselves all the time. And the farmer said there's not really a problem. They slip, but they don't hurt themselves. And also in the half year I was there, we had no real accidents because of them. I think a very important thing here is that these animals are used to this straight from birth. Like you have seen the calves running in the barn, like they grow up with this. And I think because of this and because of their pasture access during the summer months, they have a different development of their skeletal muscle system and everything. And so yes, they slip, but it's not that they all the time have broken legs or anything. Because of this, we don't really have seen this. But again, different surfaces are better, of course.
Yeah, I think it was very nice to see the video after Romane's presentation when they were running on pasture and they could just run as fast as they want with lots of space and no slippery floor.
And I also want to emphasize that Charles has also, made another comment on my question.
Yeah.
That he thinks that after transition to a CCC system, cows are more tolerant of each other, work together on calf welfare, and express more play behavior. And there are 2 people agreeing with this. So I think this expression of more play behavior in cows seems to be something that also more people have seen, which I think is very important, that we also notice that CCC can lead to more play behavior and better welfare in the cows, not only in the calves.
Yeah. And here's another question. Do cows interact a lot with different calves, or do they tend to interact only with their own?
Is this a question for me?
I think everyone can answer this one, so you can start.
Yeah, I think very often, and the vast majority of times, they interact with their own calf. What I have seen, especially head play, head butting, with the locomotor play, it's a little bit different there. It doesn't matter that much, because if there's a couple of calves running, it's more that the locomotor play itself is stimulating and contagious to the animals. So it's not that the cows would only have run with their own calves, but also with other calves when they were in the mood, I guess. So it's a bit of play type specific would be my idea to this, but maybe Margit has, or Romane, better options to this.
Well, I mean, at least in our study, we only saw frontal pushing, the social play between the same age calves and between calf and the dam. We never saw it between the calf and another cow. So I think for the social play, it's really important that I think it's just, we've only seen it with the cow. I'm not gonna. I mean, others might have seen it with the dams or other dams, but then I think there's a special relation or something going on between them. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. During my study, I also look on the social interactions performed by the co-calf pair, and I never saw positive social interaction between a calf and another calf. So the calf and the cow were, the calf was interacted only with his dam and no with other cows. And it was also the same for social play. So yeah, the bond with the dam is also important for social interactions.
Yeah, and of course this finding also raises questions about interactions in foster cow systems, which we don't know a whole lot about. There's not been many comparisons between foster cow systems and dam cow-calf contact systems. But it's something that it's a question. It's a question to ask ourselves. I mean, will we ever see this? And is there the same benefit for the cows in foster cow systems as we see in dam cow-calf contact systems? Something for us to look at in future, because many farmers also have these foster cow systems. So I think it's a relevant question to ask.
Maybe there is even someone here in the audience who has experience with foster cow system and a group foster cow system, maybe even, and has something to say about this. If the foster cows are doing a lot of head play with the calves, and if there are special calves they do it with, if you have some experience, we would be interested to hear it.
Yes. Okay, so we do not have a lot of time left, but we'll try to get through some more questions. I think, yeah, this one was sent under my presentation, but I guess everyone can answer. Do you know how much impact the better surface has on the pair calf group? Could be a reason for the differences. So I think we already discussed this a bit, that yes, I think the surface the floor, it has an impact on how much they are running. And in my study or our study, the peer group had a better flooring that was not as slippery as the cow contact group. And there's another question: can you really come to any conclusion about milk consumption impacting play behavior? You are looking at many different variables within each treatment, so it seems you would need to isolate one variable in order to understand its impact. Yes, I agree. That's as I mentioned earlier, with our study, we wanted to find indicators of positive animal welfare, and therefore the treatments were designed to actually vary in a lot of different ways. So it's difficult for this study to isolate each variable, and yeah, and we cannot draw any conclusions about the milk consumption, but it has been shown earlier in other studies that the amount of milk does affect play behavior. Does anyone else has any comment to this? Okay.
But we got a response to the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anna has said that she does the foster cow system and that it depends on the cow. So some foster cows obviously do play in grooming and others play not, or and others not. Yes, but the question was more if they show it with other calves as well, right? So it was related to the fact if it's always their own calf, or if cows also show it with other cows. So here the question would be, in a foster group pen, does the foster cow always play with the same calf, or does she play with all of the foster cows in the group pen? This would be interesting.
Okay, so I think we will have one last question here. I'm interested in how to quantify play behavior in order to assess the welfare level. Yeah, how do we do that? Does any of you?
Well, that's a very good question because play behavior is very time consuming to look at. But there are, as also Anina showed, and maybe you will comment more on this, there are also ways to measure it automatically. And I think that if we could develop automatic measures of recording locomotor play behavior, we would be better able to do this. And also, I would think that it would be important for us to record the different types of play separately if we can, because they might relate differently to animal welfare. But Anina, I think you have some. You showed some data on the leg attached sensors and play.
Yes, the problem with the accelerometers at the moment is that the memory capacity is quite low. So you can have like 18 hours. So at the moment, it's very experimental for experimental studies. But I think with time, this will evolve, and we can, just like with a normal pedometer, can use this to assess play behavior in calves or locomotor play behavior in calves in the future. And I think there's also some AI work which are looking at goats and headbutting in goats. So the AI looks at videos or video observation of the barn and can distinguish the headbutting in the goats from other behaviors. So I think at the moment, we still need to be a little bit patient for technology to evolve, but I'm pretty sure it will be possible in the future, also as a normal level, not only in experimental studies.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with that. In pigs, there's also experimental work to sort of identify locomotor play behavior with image analysis, as you mentioned with the goats. So, but of course, I mean, if we've got our animals outside, we maybe leg attached sensors is a better. idea.
That's fine. I'll be here. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think we are out of time. So thank you so much for all of your questions. And again, thank you, Margit, Anina, and Romane. So you should join the upcoming webinars from TransformDairyNet. The first one is cow-calf contact on different continents, lessons learned so far. This will be on the 11th of December from 10 to 12:15. And this is both online and in person, so it will be a live stream of the seminar. And thank you so much for joining, and don't forget to subscribe to the TransformDairyNet, the newsletter, and follow on social media. And here you have a QR code so that you can register for the newsletter.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for all the questions.